We found Pharaoh Khafre's tomb, and we're terrified.
In 2023, technology revealed something so startling inside Khafre's pyramid that it left archaeologists shaken to their core. Using highly advanced cosmic ray scans, researchers peered deep inside the ancient structure, expecting to confirm what history books had long told us. Instead, they found the impossible, an enormous hidden chamber sealed away for more than 4,500 years. This wasn't just a crack in the wall or a minor passage no one had noticed before. It was a deliberately concealed space, untouched since the very moment it was sealed in antiquity. The unsettling part? No one could explain why it was built or what it was designed to hide. For centuries, the pyramids of Giza have been at the center of human fascination. But this new discovery forced experts to admit something chilling. Perhaps we've been wrong all along about their true purpose. Archaeologists stood frozen as they studied the scans. Every layer of stone revealed secrets that had been buried since the dawn of civilization. The chamber's size and placement weren't random. It appeared intentional, as if the builders had gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure it stayed hidden from human eyes for eternity. The obvious question followed. What exactly did they hide in there and why? This was not the first time Khafre's pyramid had defied expectations, but it was the clearest reminder that even after centuries of study, its secrets remain locked away, mocking us from the shadows. And this wasn't just a matter of missing history. The very existence of this hidden chamber hinted at knowledge and motives far beyond what traditional archaeology has been willing to consider. Standing at 470 feet tall, Khafre's pyramid is a monument to engineering that shouldn't have been possible for its time. Built with over 2 million massive stone blocks, the structure defies logic even today. Some of these stones weigh as much as 15 tons, as heavy as a fully loaded school bus. Yet somehow, ancient builders managed to haul these blocks across the desert, lift them into place, and align them with a precision that modern construction crews would struggle to achieve even with advanced machinery. You'd think a monument built thousands of years ago would be riddled with gaps, irregularities, or errors. But Khafre's pyramid is anything but sloppy. The stones are cut so perfectly that even now, after centuries of weathering, you can't slip a razor blade between them. There's no mortar holding them together, no adhesive keeping them in place. Just stone meeting stone, locked so tightly that the entire structure has stood untouched for nearly 5 millennia. Even more staggering is its alignment. The pyramid sits almost perfectly oriented to true north, missing by only a fraction of a degree. To put that into perspective, even with satellites, GPS, and laser-guided equipment, modern engineers struggle to match that level of accuracy. Entire teams with computers and years of planning would be required to pull it off today. Yet somehow, an ancient civilization that supposedly worked with nothing more than ropes, sleds, and copper tools managed it. That's not just impressive, it's unnerving. It raises a haunting question. If the Egyptians didn't have our machines, our computers, or our surveying technology, then what exactly did they use to achieve something this precise? The deeper you look, the more baffling it becomes. Each of those 2 million stones wasn't just carved and placed randomly. They were carefully positioned to distribute weight evenly, creating a structure that has survived earthquakes, storms, and the erosion of time itself. To this day, modern architects marvel at the pyramid's stability. Some even admit that replicating it with our current technology would be close to impossible. It's not just a matter of lifting heavy stones. It's the flawless planning, the exact mathematics, and the unimaginable labor required. Imagine coordinating tens of thousands of workers, all without cranes, engines, or modern logistics. It seems less like brute force and more like knowledge we've lost to history. What makes the pyramid even more mysterious is how deliberate every measurement seems to be. The proportions aren't random. They reflect mathematical constants, astronomical alignments, and possibly even knowledge of the Earth itself. Some researchers argue that the pyramid encodes information about the planet's circumference and orientation, as though the builders weren't just constructing a tomb, but leaving behind a message in stone. The fact that Khafre's pyramid has remained standing for nearly 5,000 years, resisting time better than most modern buildings, suggests a level of design that goes beyond mere architecture. It feels purposeful, precise, and almost otherworldly in its intent. And then there's the question of tools. Archaeologists will tell you the ancient Egyptians used copper chisels, stone hammers, and simple wooden sledges. But anyone who studies granite knows copper is far too soft to cut it with the kind of clean precision seen in the pyramid's blocks. Even if it were possible, the amount of time it would take to shape millions of stones this way would stretch far beyond a human lifetime. Yet somehow the work was completed. It wasn't just done. It was executed with a perfection that suggests something more advanced than basic hand tools. The evidence stares us in the face, daring us to question the official story. But most experts remain cautious, unwilling to admit just how unexplainable it all is. This is the haunting paradox of Khafre's pyramid. On one hand, it's undeniably Egyptian, built with the style, art, and cultural markings of its time. On the other, it feels impossibly advanced, as though whoever constructed it had access to knowledge that shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. It's this tension, the balance between what we think we know and what the evidence suggests, that keeps researchers awake at night. The hidden chamber discovered in 2023 is just the latest reminder that the pyramid still holds secrets. But if its construction alone challenges our understanding, what lies inside that chamber could rewrite history altogether. Stepping inside Khafre's pyramid, the sense of awe deepens into something far stranger. After the climb through narrow passageways and the suffocating silence of stone corridors, you arrive at the very heart of the structure, a room dominated by a single object, a massive granite sarcophagus. At first glance, it might look like nothing more than a giant stone coffin. But the moment you study it closely, the impossible becomes clear. Its surface is polished smooth as glass, the corners cut so sharply they resemble the precision of a modern machine. It doesn't look chiseled by hand with crude copper tools. It looks engineered, refined, manufactured with techniques far beyond what archaeologists are willing to admit existed 4,500 years ago. Granite is one of the hardest stones on Earth, tougher even than iron in many respects. Today, we rely on diamond-tipped tools, laser cutters, and high-speed machinery to shape it. Yet here sits a sarcophagus that was supposedly carved using nothing more than copper chisels and pounding stones. But copper bends and dents long before it leaves clean cuts in granite. And sandstone hammers couldn't polish a block this massive into something resembling perfection. So how was this done? This isn't a rhetorical question. It's a riddle that stares back at us every time we look at the sarcophagus. If the ancient builders didn't have advanced tools, then either we're missing a piece of history, or they had access to knowledge long since lost. The sarcophagus itself weighs several tons, and it rests inside the chamber in such a way that moving it without breaking the walls would be nearly impossible. Which raises yet another mystery. How did they get it inside? Did they build the pyramid around it, sealing it in place forever? Or did they possess methods of transportation and lifting that we still can't fully replicate today? These questions pile up like the very stones of the pyramid, creating an overwhelming sense that we're staring at something designed not just to confound, but to send a message across time. What that message is, however, remains the most haunting part of all. Some experts suggest the precision of the sarcophagus points to a ceremonial purpose far greater than a simple coffin. They argue it might have been part of a ritual, perhaps involving sound, vibration, or mathematics woven into the very stone. Others speculate it was meant to preserve not just a body, but something beyond human understanding, energy, knowledge, or even a warning. Of course, traditional archaeologists reject such theories, insisting everything can be explained by sheer manpower and ingenuity. But when you run your hand across the flawless edge of that granite box, it doesn't feel like guesswork. It feels deliberate. It feels purposeful. And yet, as stunning as the sarcophagus is, what archaeologists found, or rather didn't find, inside it left them even more unsettled. When the burial chamber was first explored in the 1800s, researchers expected to find Khafre's mummy lying in state, surrounded by treasures, offerings, and the symbols of his reign. Pharaohs were buried with everything they needed for the afterlife: gold, food, amulets, and sacred texts. It was the entire reason pyramids were built, to ensure their rulers passed safely into eternity. But when the lid of the sarcophagus was lifted, the truth stunned them into silence. The chamber was empty. The king's body was gone. At first, this discovery was brushed off as the work of tomb robbers. After all, Egypt's monuments had long been targeted by thieves, some of whom operated in ancient times themselves. But almost immediately, this explanation fell apart. The chamber was sealed so perfectly that no one could have entered without leaving obvious evidence. There were no broken seals, no damage to the sarcophagus, no signs of intrusion whatsoever. It looked untouched, as though it had been waiting for thousands of years. And yet the one thing that should have been there, the pharaoh himself, was missing. This emptiness wasn't just confusing, it was terrifying. The entire point of a pyramid was to safeguard the remains of the king. Without them, the structure loses its meaning. Imagine constructing one of the largest monuments in the history of the world, only to leave its centerpiece, the body, absent. Why? It makes no sense. Unless, of course, Khafre was never meant to be buried there at all. The sarcophagus becomes less of a coffin and more of a question. If the pharaoh's body was never inside it, then what was it for? Was it a decoy, designed to lure intruders away from the real burial site? Was it symbolic, built to represent something greater than physical remains? Or was it deliberately left empty, part of a mystery that only the builders themselves understood? Every possibility leads to darker implications. If it was a decoy, then what exactly were they protecting so fiercely that they had to mislead future generations? If it was symbolic, then what were they trying to communicate in stone and silence? And if it was deliberately left empty, then the obvious question is, what was Khafre hiding? Even more disturbing is how this clashes with everything we know about Egyptian beliefs. The preservation of the body was essential to eternal life. Without it, the soul was doomed to vanish. For Khafre to willingly abandon that tradition suggests something extraordinary, something frightening. Did he believe his body carried secrets too dangerous to leave behind? Did he fear enemies who would use his remains for power? Or did he know something about the afterlife that we don't? These are not questions archaeologists are comfortable asking, yet they hang in the air every time the empty sarcophagus is mentioned. The more you think about it, the more it begins to feel like the pyramid itself wasn't meant to protect a corpse, but to conceal a truth so monumental that it had to be hidden away beneath millions of tons of stone. And the fact that the sarcophagus sits there empty, flawless, and silent only makes that truth feel more unsettling. It suggests that the real mystery of Khafre's pyramid isn't what it contains, but what it was meant to keep from us. The moment the sarcophagus was found empty, everything archaeologists thought they knew about Khafre's pyramid began to unravel. Imagine spending decades studying a monument built to safeguard a king for eternity, only to discover that the one thing it was meant to protect, the king himself, was missing. That discovery wasn't just puzzling. It was earth-shattering. The absence of Khafre's body cast doubt on the very foundation of Egyptian burial practices, raising questions no one had ever dared to ask before. Theories began to swirl almost immediately. The most obvious explanation was tomb robbers. After all, countless Egyptian tombs were plundered in antiquity. Pharaohs were buried with unimaginable wealth, gold, jewels, sacred artifacts, tempting targets for thieves. Perhaps Khafre's tomb had been stripped clean long ago, his body discarded, his treasures melted down. On the surface, it sounded reasonable, but the deeper researchers looked, the less it made sense. The chamber showed no signs of intrusion. The seals were intact, the walls unbroken, the sarcophagus pristine. Even the dust inside suggested it had not been disturbed for thousands of years. If robbers had broken in, they had somehow managed to erase every trace of their crime, something that no other looted tomb in Egypt has ever shown. It was too clean, too untouched. That forced experts to consider something far stranger. Maybe the body had never been there to begin with. What if the pyramid wasn't built as a tomb at all, but for another purpose entirely? This idea, radical as it was, began to take root. If true, it would mean the entire premise of Khafre's pyramid, the reason it was constructed, the reason thousands of men labored for years to complete it, was based on a lie. Instead of being the eternal resting place of a pharaoh, it might have been something else, a decoy, a symbol, or perhaps even a kind of machine, built with a function we still don't understand. Some scholars suggest the empty chamber was a deliberate trick, a decoy designed to mislead both ancient grave robbers and modern explorers alike. By placing a flawless sarcophagus at the heart of the pyramid but leaving it empty, Khafre could have hidden his true burial place elsewhere. The pyramid then becomes not a tomb, but a riddle, a distraction meant to protect something far more important. But if that's true, where is the real tomb? After centuries of searching, no hidden chamber containing Khafre's body has ever been found. Which means the decoy theory only deepens the mystery. Others take the idea further, proposing that Khafre himself ordered the sarcophagus to remain empty, that he intentionally broke with tradition, refusing to place his body in the pyramid at all. To understand how radical that idea is, you have to grasp how central the body was to Egyptian belief. The physical remains weren't just a vessel. They were the anchor for the soul in the afterlife. Without the body, the pharaoh's spirit couldn't live on. For Khafre to abandon this principle would mean he either knew something his priests didn't, or he feared something so much that he was willing to sacrifice his own eternity. This leads to even darker possibilities. What if Khafre believed his body carried secrets too dangerous to leave behind? Perhaps he feared enemies would use his remains for rituals or power. Or perhaps he believed that by hiding his body, he could shield himself from forces far greater than human thieves. Some whisper that the pyramid's architecture itself, its alignment with the stars, its mathematical perfection, suggests it wasn't just a tomb, but a fortress. A kind of lockbox meant to contain knowledge or energy beyond our comprehension. If the body was never there, then maybe the pyramid was never meant for burial at all. Maybe it was meant for concealment. Even within mainstream archaeology, this possibility unsettles researchers. Because if Khafre wasn't buried there, then why build the pyramid in the first place? These structures weren't small undertakings. They required tens of thousands of workers, vast resources, and decades of effort. The Egyptians wouldn't commit to such a monumental project without a reason. And yet, if the sarcophagus was never used, then the entire pyramid becomes an enigma, a project of immense scale with no clear purpose. Theories continue to pile up, each more unsettling than the last. Some suggest the pyramid was designed as a symbolic resurrection chamber, a place not for the body, but for the soul. Others believe it may have been built to honor the gods rather than to bury a king. And still others whisper about knowledge lost to time, ancient sciences or technologies that the Egyptians may have possessed, but that history has since erased. These aren't the kinds of explanations you'll find in a textbook, but they're the ones that keep rising to the surface as more discoveries are made. And every time archaeologists dig deeper into Giza, they find more evidence that the pyramids are hiding something. Subterranean passages, sealed doors, hidden voids, all suggesting there's more beneath the surface than we've ever been told. It's as if the ancients went to extraordinary lengths to build not just monuments, but mysteries, ensuring that future generations would never fully uncover their secrets. The missing body of Khafre isn't just a gap in the archaeological record. It's a wound in our understanding of history, a question mark carved in stone. When you stand inside that chamber staring at the empty sarcophagus, the silence feels heavy, almost deliberate. It's not just the absence of a body you're confronting, it's the absence of answers. And maybe that was the point all along. Maybe Khafre wanted to leave behind something that would confound us, something that would force us to question, to dig deeper, to look beyond the obvious. Because in the end, the greatest mystery of the pyramid isn't what it contains, but what it refuses to reveal. The last theory is perhaps the most provocative and one that has only grown stronger in recent years, thanks to advances in technology and a shift in how we approach history. Some researchers believe that the empty sarcophagus of Pharaoh Khafre isn't just an accident of looting or lost records. It may have been left empty on purpose, a statement etched into stone to communicate something to future generations. What if Khafre himself ordered it to remain vacant, as a symbolic gesture or as part of a larger religious belief? After all, the Egyptians were masters of ritual and symbolism. Perhaps Khafre's spirit was meant to remain unbound to the physical body, to watch over his pyramid as an eternal guardian. This interpretation may sound far-fetched, but it's supported by the idea that the Egyptians were constantly evolving their views of the afterlife. Some priests and pharaohs believed that the spirit could ascend to the heavens, joining the sun god Ra on his daily journey across the sky. In that case, a body would no longer be necessary for immortality. Only the pyramid, a cosmic engine of stone standing forever as a beacon between the earth and the heavens. The empty sarcophagus, then, could be one of the greatest riddles of human history, a puzzle deliberately left for us, thousands of years later, to wonder about. Today, the Pyramid of Khafre remains one of the most visited monuments in all of Egypt. Tourists from around the globe line up to step into its shadow, to walk down the sloping passage into the burial chamber, and to stand before the giant empty sarcophagus, feeling the weight of thousands of years pressing in from the stone walls. For many, the experience is overwhelming, a direct connection to the mysteries of the ancient world. But no matter how many people pass through those chambers, the truth of what happened to Khafre's body remains elusive. Did looters truly strip his tomb bare, erasing every trace of his burial? Did his body ever lie inside that sarcophagus, or was it always meant to be a symbol? Could it be that his remains are still hidden somewhere in the pyramid, waiting for us to uncover a hidden passage or chamber that has escaped detection all these centuries? With modern tools like ground-penetrating radar, we are closer than ever to finding out. But even today, the Great Pyramid of Khafre resists our attempts to decode its secrets. It is as though the pyramid itself protects its mysteries, silently guarding its purpose as it has since the day the final stone was laid. The most chilling part of the story is that we may never know. The sands of time have buried countless answers, and every decade that passes makes the puzzle harder to solve. Yet this very absence, this haunting emptiness in the sarcophagus, is what keeps Khafre's pyramid alive in our imagination. It transforms the site from a mere monument into a living mystery, a timeless question carved into the desert itself. Was this the work of ambitious thieves, fearless enough to desecrate the tomb of a pharaoh? Or was it the ultimate expression of divine belief, where the body was no longer needed and only the pyramid mattered? Perhaps it was something stranger still, something beyond our modern understanding, tied to rituals and ideas we cannot fully grasp. In the end, the Great Pyramid of Khafre stands as both a marvel of human engineering and an eternal riddle, a structure that asks more questions than it answers. As the sun sets over Giza, casting a golden glow across the limestone blocks, one can't help but feel the weight of history pressing down. The pyramid has stood for more than 4,000 years, weathering storms, invasions, earthquakes, and the relentless march of time. It has watched empires rise and fall, witnessed explorers and archaeologists crawling through its passageways, and endured countless theories about its true purpose. And yet the sarcophagus remains empty, the mystery unsolved. Perhaps that is the point. Perhaps the story of Khafre and his missing remains is not meant to have a definitive ending, but rather to remind us of the limits of our knowledge and the enduring power of the unknown. The pyramid whispers to us across the ages, daring us to keep searching, to keep questioning, and to never stop wondering. Because sometimes the greatest treasures are not the ones we find, but the mysteries that compel us to look deeper.